Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump warns Russia of severe consequences if no peace progress is made. This is just 2 days before a summit between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. As the administration pushes to bring peace back to Europe, Vice President J.D. Vance thanks U.S. troops in the UK, saying peace is not possible without them. New York Attorney General Letitia James sues Zelle for allegedly enabling fraud. The payment platform says the claims are meritless. How significant is the risk to the U.S. that NVIDIA chips will be sold to China? We talked to a cybersecurity advisor. 2 U.S. warships sail near the disputed South China Sea shoal, just days after Chinese vessels collided while trying to drive off a Philippine ship there. We talked to a China expert about the gravity of the situation.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump is just 2 days away from his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Many are curious about Trump's strategy going into the talks. Today, Trump was asked if there will be consequences for Russia if no progress is made after the talks. Here's how Trump responded.
There will be consequences. Sanctions, tariffs? There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.
European allies, including Ukraine, have been calling on Trump to include Kyiv in the peace progress. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is not scheduled to attend the talks on Friday, but Trump now says it's possible that there will be a trilateral meeting shortly after Friday's summit.
If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they'd like to have me there. And that would be a meeting where maybe it could be absolutely work. But the first meeting will not work that out. Certain great things can be gained in the first. It's going to be a very important meeting, but it's setting the table for the second.
And earlier, President Trump completes a phone call with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky and other European allies this morning. This comes just 2 days before Trump is scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has what the Europeans say about their call with Trump.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was in Germany on Wednesday. Him and various other European leaders had a phone call with President Trump. This comes just 2 days before Trump is scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Here's what Zelensky says about the upcoming meeting.
I told the U.S. president that Putin is bluffing. He's currently trying to put on pressure along all parts of the Ukrainian front. Russia is trying to show that it can occupy all of Ukraine.
Zelensky spoke alongside the Chancellor of Germany after their call with Trump. The Chancellor says they laid out 5 points they want Trump to keep in mind as he prepares for the summit with Putin.
Ukraine has to be part of future negotiations as soon as more talks are being scheduled. We also want there to be an order to the negotiations. A ceasefire has to come before anything else.
He added 3 more points. One is that Europe is not open to acknowledge Russia's occupation of Ukrainian territory, saying borders cannot be changed through violence. Another point is that negotiations must include security guarantees for Ukraine, so Kyiv can keep defending itself in the future. This includes being able to count on support from the West. The last point the Chancellor made is that pressure on Russia has to be increased if no breakthrough is made after the talks on Friday. French President Emmanuel Macron was on the call as well. He later said he supports Trump's main objective of Friday's meeting.
President Trump was very clear on the fact that the United States wants to obtain a ceasefire during this meeting in Alaska. We support this initiative.
NATO Chief Mark Rutte also joined Wednesday's conversation. He says he appreciates Trump's leadership and close coordination with allies. The ball is now in Putin's court. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
As the Trump administration makes another push to end Russia's war in Ukraine, Vice President J.D. Vance capped off his trip to the United Kingdom by addressing U.S. troops today at the Royal Air Force Base Fairford.
What you guys do, even though you may not see it every single day, is you make it possible. You make it possible for us to accomplish the president's goals through negotiation. You make it possible for us to go into a room and say, yes, we want peace. Yes, we want to work together. Yes, we'd like to bring an end to this terrible conflict, but we've also got some great airmen.
Prior to the address, Vance spoke to President Trump. The president told him that the administration's goal is to bring peace to Europe once again. Vance, a former Marine himself, is in the UK. He is encouraging European allies to take more ownership in ending the war. Vance said to European leaders that the U.S. is done funding the war. He added that they should be willing to play a more direct and financial role. Data from the Council of Foreign Relations shows that Congress has passed measures totaling at least $175 billion in aid spending to Ukraine since 2022.
If you look at the long sweep of history, every time something big happens for the world, every time a great victory is won for freedom and for peace and for prosperity, it is almost always the Brits and the Americans that do it together, and we win every single time.
Meanwhile, a federal appeals court today has lifted an injunction that required the State Department to continue making foreign aid payments. A 3-judge panel of the Federal D.C. Court of Appeals ruled in a 2-1 decision. It said a lower court mistakenly ordered the Trump administration to restore foreign assistance payments that were previously frozen. The majority ruled the states that were granted the injunction don't have a cause of action under the appropriate laws to press their claims. The dissenting judge countered that the majority is allowing the president to overstep his powers under the Constitution, and noted that Congress has authority over federal spending. A Virginia-based federal judge heard arguments today over the Trump administration's lawsuit against 15 Maryland judges. The administration is objecting to a standing order that automatically blocks the government from immediately deporting illegal immigrants. The government argued today that the order is allowing petitioners to bypass a requirement to show why they shouldn't be removed, and that district courts don't have authority to review deportation petitions. The order applies a temporary stay of deportation for a minimum of 2 days while a filed case is considered. Under the order, a presiding judge could extend the stay at his or her discretion. Maryland's chief judge said the order was necessary to manage the influx of petitions from potential deportees. President Trump has announced a new set of judicial nominees. He picked 5 individuals to serve as federal district judges in Alabama and Mississippi. Among them is Alabama Solicitor General Edmund LaCour, tapped for the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Alabama. LaCour is a Yale law student and the state's top appellate lawyer since 2019. He has supported gun rights and abortion restrictions. Trump also nominated Harold Moody, praising what he called his devotion to the rule of law. And Trump nominated Bill Lewis to the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Alabama. He's currently serving as a justice on the Alabama Supreme Court. James Maxwell and Robert Chamberlain are Trump's nominees to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Mississippi. Both men currently serve on the Mississippi Supreme Court. It's unclear when the confirmation hearings for the 5 nominees will begin in the U.S. Senate. The White House is ordering an internal review of selected Smithsonian museums and exhibitions. This comes as the nation prepares to celebrate its 250th anniversary next year. The goal of the review is to make sure the exhibits align with President Trump's directive to celebrate U.S. exceptionalism and remove divisive narratives. The White House says it's more important than ever that America's national museums reflect the unity, progress, and enduring values that define the American story. The review will initially focus on 8 museums, including the National Museum of American History, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and the National Museum of the American Indian Officials. Will examine the museum's websites, social media content, and educational materials. A settlement in a pair of cases involving race-based admissions. The Justice Department yesterday announced the agreements. The litigation challenged former race-based admissions practices at West Point Military Academy and the Air Force Academy. 2 lawsuits brought by students for fair admissions were tossed due to the settlement. The cases challenged race-based admissions at the two military academies as unconstitutional under the Fifth Amendment. Attorney General Pamela Bondi said the DOJ is committed to eliminating DEI practices throughout the federal government. U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton said the agreement ensures that future military leaders will carry on the greatness that is born of opportunity, effort, and a level playing field. The settlement includes terms that help ensure that admissions will be based exclusively on merit, not race or ethnicity. Tensions on the high seas as the United States deployed two warships today near a disputed shoal in the South China Sea, the same location where two Chinese Navy and Coast Guard ships collided 2 days ago while trying to drive away a smaller Philippine ship. Both China and the Philippines claim Scarborough Shoal and other outcroppings in the South China Sea. The two U.S. warships were shadowed by a Chinese Navy ship while sailing about 30 nautical miles from the Scarborough Shoal. There were no reports of any incidents. The Navy has staged what it calls freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea for years. That has angered China, and its forces had close run-ins with U.S. warships and aircraft during patrols in international waters and airspace. China's military today said it monitored and drove away a U.S. destroyer that sailed near the disputed Scarborough Shoal. The U.S. Navy called China's statement false. More on China. A Chinese fighter jet intercepted a Philippine aircraft carrying journalists during a patrol flight over the Scarborough Shoal today. A Reuters journalist aboard the Philippine Coast Guard flight watched as the Chinese fighter closed in on the small plane. Officials say at one point the Chinese fighter came within about 200 feet as it maneuvered behind, above, and alongside the plane. The encounter lasted 20 minutes. Radio demands from a Chinese Navy ship spotted below ordered the Philippine plane to leave immediately. And joining us now to discuss the United States deploying two warships to the South China Sea is Steve Yates, Senior Fellow for International Security Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Good afternoon, Steve. Thank you very much for your time today. So this comes after two Chinese vessels collided, right, when they were trying to drive away a Philippine ship. And this is alarming several Western and Asian countries. They're calling it a dangerous maneuver. So to start off, can you elaborate for us? What are their concerns here? And talk to us about the gravity of the situation.
Well, there are several issues at play. I mean, number one, there's the very gratuitous and exaggerated territorial claims that China has on the South China Sea that encroach upon the territorial waters and the claims of many nations, not just the Philippines. And so there's that, I think, form of pressure, first and foremost. Second, the Chinese have been sending out more and more of these missions, where it's by air or by sea, trying to aggressively intercept or push away other vessels. And I think what we saw with this last incident was the lack of professionalism among their commanders and crew. So this just reminded me of April 1st of 2001, when the pilot Wang Wei crashed into our EP-3 aircraft. The Chinese military might have a lot of personnel, a lot of vessels, but they don't conduct themselves professionally at all times. And that's where the contrast was with the United States doing their freedom of navigation operation. Very professional, without incident, significant show of capability and solidarity with alliances.
But China was actually tailing the U.S. ships, right? What does that mean?
Well, they do that to try to demonstrate that we see you, but part of the reason you do these freedom of navigation operations is to be seen. So it's a little bit of a dance. But what it really demonstrated was that the United States has forward deployed capabilities, that it has a treaty alliance with the Philippines. It stands with our ally. But more than that, it stands with freedom of navigation on the high seas. And that really cuts right down the middle of China's aggressive claims to the 9-dash line, so-called.
Okay, can you talk to us about the legal status of the Scarborough Shoal? Because you mentioned the 9-dash line, right? How does those two conflict?
Well, the Scarborough Shoal was Philippine territory. The Chinese had taken control of it. And so that was actually an act of military aggression. Some would say an act of war. But first and foremost, we have what are widely accepted standards of certain distances from shore that are international waters, and that any nation conducting themselves in a responsible way should have safe passage. That's what our entire trade system depends upon, not just our security alliances. And so the quantity of the world trade going on the ocean surface through this area is quite significant. And so having these kinds of missteps, potential clashes involving military vessels is very destabilizing.
I think relevant to our discussion today is China's use of gray zone tactics as it relates to the South China Sea. And would you mind explaining for us what those tactics involve?
Well, in the international law of the sea that is what a lot of people go by, there is a shorter distance from shore that's your territorial waters, that no one without permission should be bringing vessels into. Extending many more miles into the sea would be exclusive economic zones. When you have territories that could be close together, you might have overlapping exclusive economic zones. And so you could end up with situations where one country is sending their military or civilian vessels into another person's exclusive zone without prior communication or the normal coordination. And it's a form of intrusion and pressure. China does this to a fare thee well to Taiwan. It's literally in the hundreds, if not thousands, in the last year or so. And they've increasingly been doing it around the perimeter of the South China Sea, which is the expansive claim of China extending their sovereign territory all the way down to almost Indonesia.
And as you alluded to a number of times, this isn't an isolated event, right? It follows years of water cannon use, ramming. What is the level of concern that you have that China's actions could spark an accidental conflict, for example, or a more serious confrontation?
Well, it's really the lack of responsibility and professionalism first and foremost. And of course, very coincident with that is just the irresponsibility. This is not a good neighborly way of behaving. It is not what a peaceful power does. And if you look at that Chinese military vessel ramming into its own Coast Guard vessel, that wasn't on purpose. That military vessel was going at high speed. It meant to ram into the Philippine vessel. And if that collision had occurred, that's a significant international incident. There could be casualties. It causes a whole lot of questions to come to the fore about potential military engagement, the invocation of the U.S.-Philippine Defense Treaty, a whole host of things. So fundamentally, this is very irresponsible behavior. The Chinese side knows it extremely well, and they are still doing it.
Okay, just one final question. Is there a way to enforce freedom of navigation in international waters, such as the South China Sea, for example, so that China does not engage in this behavior?
It really is collective action. So the U.S. doing its freedom of navigation exercises, if it also participates either together with or separately alongside other powers. Every once in a while, you'll see a German vessel or a British vessel or others that are doing this. But the more we have allies that are having these freedom of navigation exercises, the safer our commercial sea lines of communication will be, and it will have greater consequences for China's demonstration of irresponsibility. It won't be seen as an isolated China-Philippine or China-U.S. incident. It's one that challenges the entire international system.
All right, Steve, great insight as always. And again, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up, New York Attorney General Letitia James sues Zelle for allegedly enabling fraud. The payment platform says the claims are meritless. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just the peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-522-0122, 800-522-0122.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
We are taught you don't talk about your problems with nobody because you could get in trouble. And I've been through a lot. Anxiety, depression, sexual assault. When I decided to get help, my life changed. And the mental health box, that was one of the big tools. Accepting help means that we are allowing somebody to bless our life. It's freeing. We got stronger together. Love your mind.
Three people have died amid heavy rain and flooding in Tennessee. An emergency management spokesperson said they were killed after a tree fell onto their car. The Hamilton County mayor declared a local state of emergency last night. A search was also ongoing on Wednesday for a man who walked through a flooded road in Chattanooga. The flooding prompted rescues of people trapped in homes and swamped vehicles yesterday. Flooding also closed parts of Interstate 24 in the area, but the highway reopened once floodwaters receded. The region was bracing for more rainfall and flooding today. The National Weather Service issued a flood watch for much of Middle Tennessee through tonight. A new study suggests that this year's Los Angeles wildfires killed far more people than official counts show. Researchers now believe the true death toll could be more than 14 times higher than reported. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
While 30 direct fatalities were recorded from California's Palisades and Eaton fires in January, researchers estimate the real toll may be closer to 440 deaths. Even though around 30 deaths were officially recorded, the smoke's impact on health may have caused many more fatalities. The findings, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, come from mortality data comparing expected deaths in early 2025 to previous years. From January 5th to February 1st, Los Angeles County recorded 6,371 deaths, about 440 more than usual. Experts say many of these deaths were likely linked to toxic smoke that blanketed the region, worsening conditions like heart disease, asthma, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. This study highlights how wildfire smoke can cause serious, long-lasting harm, sometimes more than the fire itself. Wildfire smoke is made up of gases, water vapor, and tiny particles like tar, carbon, and soot, along with hundreds of harmful chemicals. The smallest particles pose the greatest risk because they can enter the bloodstream, causing health problems that can persist long after the fire has been extinguished. Researchers warn the true toll may be higher as smoke and toxicants crossed the county lines and lingered for weeks. The findings come as wildfire smoke from Canada and California's Gifford Fire triggers air quality alerts in 11 states this week. Scientists say the study shows smoke, not the flames, is often the deadliest part of a wildfire. Christina Corona, NTD News.
New York Attorney General Letitia James is suing Zelle for refusing to adopt safety features. She says this enabled fraudsters to steal more than $1 billion from users. Zelle was launched in 2017 and competes with apps like PayPal's Venmo and Block's Cash App. Parent company Early Warning Services is owned by 7 large banks, including Bank of America, Capital One, JP Morgan Chase, PNC, Truist, US Bank, and Wells Fargo. In response to James's lawsuit, Zelle said more than 99.9% of its transactions on the platform are completed without reported fraud. And the company's statement reads, quote, "This is a lawsuit, a political stunt to generate press, not progress." Zelle added, quote, "The Attorney General should focus on the hard facts, stopping criminal activity and adherence to the law, not overreaching and meritless claims." And Eli Lilly is being accused of bribing healthcare providers to recommend and prescribe weight loss drugs. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed a lawsuit. Paxton claims that one Eli Lilly program provided free nursing services to providers who prescribed its drug. The Texas Attorney General said another offered prescription assistance. Texas officials are seeking a jury trial and a judgment that Eli Lilly is in violation of state law. They also want the company to be ordered to pay civil penalties and to pay back money it received under the programs. GE Appliances is bringing back production back to the United States. Refrigerators, gas ranges, and water heaters manufactured in China and Mexico will now be made in the good old USA. The move is part of a more than $3 billion investment to expand its domestic operations in Kentucky, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. The investment is the second largest in the Louisville-based company's history and is expected to add more than 1,000 jobs. GE Appliances will relocate production of gas ranges from Mexico to a plant in Georgia. The company said 6 refrigerator models currently made in China will be manufactured at its Alabama plant. The announcement comes as President Trump tries to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. Meanwhile, YouTube is starting to test a new safety feature for American teens. It's an AI estimation model that distinguishes age regardless of the birth date entered when creating the account. The technology will determine if the user is under 18 based on a variety of signals, such as YouTube activity and longevity of the account. If it's determined a user is under 18, they will be notified and standard protections will be automatically enabled. These protections include digital well-being tools like reminders to take breaks or go to bed. There are also safeguard recommendations as limiting repeated exposure to certain types of content. Users will have the options to prove they are at least 18, such as with a government ID or credit card. Amazon hopes its new rollout will streamline your online grocery shopping experience to get same-day delivery of fresh food to your door. The online retail giant is targeting more than 1,000 cities in the effort. Perishable food items, including dairy, meat, and seafood, can be checked out in the same online cart alongside other items. Previous partnerships with local grocery stores took customers to different checkouts. Amazon said this new service will be complementary to its existing grocery delivery offerings. That includes Amazon Fresh, which offers faster deliveries with a higher minimum payment, and Whole Food Markets. In some cities, and most of them, same-day delivery will be free for Prime members on orders over $25, or a fee of $2.99 if the order doesn't meet that minimum. Customers without a Prime subscription can use the service for a fee of $12.99 without an order minimum. Coming up, how significant is the risk to the U.S. that NVIDIA chips will be sold to China? We talked to a cybersecurity advisor. Don't go away for that.
My mom and dad were traditional Asian parents, Now my father would go to work before I woke up in the morning, and then he would come home too tired to play with me. I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. So I teased him the other day and I said, how come you never say that to me? And he said, you're too old now. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the material things, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious minute or moment.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Amid high-stakes trade negotiations with the Chinese regime, the White House is looking to expand a deal involving U.S. companies selling to China. It allows chip-making companies to avoid export controls. Lawmakers are raising concerns about national security and the legality of the deal. NTD's Melina Weiskup has a report.
After previously banning the sale of AI chips to China, Trump made a deal to allow U.S. chip makers NVIDIA and AMD to sell certain chips to China if they pay the U.S. government a slice of their profits. Under the new deal, NVIDIA and AMD will pay 15% of their revenues from China H20 chip sales to the U.S. government. This in exchange for U.S. export licenses. And yesterday, the press secretary at the White House said this type of deal could be expanded.
Right now, it stands with these two companies. Perhaps it could expand in the future to other companies. I think it's a creative idea and solution. The legality of it, the mechanics of it is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce.
Now, lawmakers in Congress aren't necessarily happy with this. Leaders of the House's Select Committee on the CCP are raising national security concerns. The ranking member wants to take action to prevent these types of deals in the future.
I'm going to introduce legislation to require congressional approval for the sale of these types of chips to the CCP and adversaries. I just asked the question, what's next? Is he going to sell aircraft carriers to them for a 15% tip? Is he going to...
And the chairman of the committee, John Molinar, a Republican, said there's a legality question at play. He said, quote, and we should not set a precedent that incentivizes the government to grant licenses to sell China technology that will enhance its AI capabilities. This deal comes at a sensitive moment in U.S.-China trade talks. The Trump administration just extended a trade truce with the regime for another 90 days. The Treasury Secretary described all of this negotiating as a chess game.
China's like a multi-level chess game. It's our biggest economic rival and our biggest military rival. So we're solving for several variables here.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping and President Trump might have a summit later this year. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss Trump's deal with chipmakers NVIDIA and AMD is Rex Lee, cybersecurity advisor at MySmartPrivacy and tech journalist. So good afternoon, Rex. As you're aware, the deal involves the two semiconductor companies getting export licenses to sell chips to China, and in exchange, they will have to pay the U.S. government 15% of the sales revenue. I understand you've called this an unusual deal. Can you elaborate what you mean by that?
Regarding Trump's tariffs on China, we're told that we're to pay higher prices for Chinese goods like a Chinese-made television. So the reason we're told that we need to pay a tariff on these products is because China presents a national security threat. So we're told on one hand that China poses a national security threat to us and we must pay a higher price. Plus, we're also told by the White House that we're in an AI arms race with China as well, yet we're enabling AMD and NVIDIA to sell Chinese app and platform developers who infuse AI into their apps and platforms, AI intellectual property developed by companies in America. So this is definitely a highly unusual deal, and it questions whether or not China poses a national security threat if we're going to allow American-based companies to sell AI IP to China or share it. In the case of Google, Apple, and Microsoft sharing their AI IP through software developer kits to application developers in China, such as ByteDance, the developers of TikTok, who infuse AI into their social media platforms and their apps.
Can you get into the specifics here of what the risk is? What are the risks that these chips will be used in China? Is it going to be used in China's military, for example? What are the concerns?
Yes, a lot of people don't know this, but the CCP requires that any civilian company in China share IP with them through their civil military fusion program. So this AI IP will end up in the hands of the Chinese military and then weaponized against the West. We see this through social media platforms, through psychological warfare or unrestricted hybrid warfare and tech-based hybrid warfare being waged through social media platforms, whether the platforms are developed in China or not. These platforms are used to spread myths and disinformation, influence elections, and spread propaganda all over the world. Prior to the invention of the smartphone, it was very difficult to spread propaganda around the world. Well, today, through an AI-infused app, you can reach 2 billion people or more instantly with misinformation and propaganda through a social media platform and an AI-infused app such as TikTok or WeChat or Baidu Android apps or Temu and other apps that are developed in China.
Now, Rex, I fully understand the concerns that you raise and the potential risks, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment here. There's one analyst that I talked to on the show before that said these companies, whether you're talking NVIDIA or AMD, they need to be able to sell chips into the Chinese market in order to have the revenue, to have the money, right, to develop more advanced chips for the U.S. How do you feel about that?
That's a conundrum, isn't it? Is China really a national security threat? Are we really in an AI race with China if we're allowing Alphabet, the parent company of Google, Microsoft, Apple, IBM, NVIDIA, AMD to share their AI IP with these Chinese companies that are beholden to the CCP? What's more important, profits or national security? So I think there does need to be some oversight here. You can't tell me on one hand that China poses a national security threat to the United States, and then on the other hand, not only are you going to share your AI IP with them, but it's going to be infused into apps and platforms that enable Chinese app developers like ByteDance, Tencent, Alibaba, are the developer of Alibaba AI Quinn. You're allowing these companies to surveil and data mine Americans through their telephones and their computers that house these apps. So not only are you allowing these companies to develop their AI through American-made IP, but then the AI is being used and integrated into intrusive apps and platforms such as social media apps and platforms that are used for surveillance and data mining to collect that information. Not only are they collecting the information, but they're packaging it and selling it to targeted advertisers for billions of dollars, which, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this, but these companies, the revenue that they collect from their targeted advertising is exempt from the tariffs. So they're pulling trillions of dollars collectively in advertising dollars through surveillance and data mining technology that's developed or integrated into these AI-infused apps. So how is China a national security threat when I have to go out and pay a higher price for a television? Or does China pose more of a national security threat through the ability for Chinese app and platform developers to infuse AI that's developed with American-made IP for surveillance and data mining technology for targeted advertising?
I guess the core question here is, do American semiconductor companies need the Chinese market and its money in order to have the revenue to develop more advanced chips, more sophisticated chips, to maintain the U.S. lead currently that it has over China?
In the end, you have to prioritize that. It's like with the protecting Americans from Foreign Adversarial Controlled Applications Act, which was circumvented by Donald Trump due to the fact that that act, which was passed in 2024, banned intrusive AI-infused apps and platforms from China that included TikTok. We all heard it was the TikTok ban, but it wasn't just that. The act also included other AI-infused apps and platforms from China. So now we have to ask ourselves again, what's a higher priority? Our ability to profit from markets in China or our own national security when that AI-infused apps and platforms and technology is going to be weaponized by the Chinese military for unrestricted hybrid warfare and tech-based hybrid warfare?
What do you think of the idea that, China needs U.S. semiconductors to an extent to improve whether it's military or whatever aspect of its own ambitions, right? But if it does buy U.S. technology, it is sort of funding the U.S. government. What do you think about that idea?
Well, then again, why are we imposing tariffs on Chinese goods and services in the name of national security? So if China's really our trading partner and they're not a national security threat, then I think the administration needs to get their story straight. They're either a national security threat or they're not. They're a trading partner. That's up to the priority of the U.S. government. You can't tell the citizens on one hand, we're going to raise tariffs on Chinese goods and services because they pose a national security threat and that we're in an AI arms race with China. And then on the other hand, say, well, we need them to bolster our markets and we need them for profits for our tech companies, which are the largest tech companies in the world. You can't have it both ways. So I think that the administration has to clearly make this point. They're either a trading partner and they're not a national security threat or an adversary, or they're a trading partner.
Okay, just one final question, Rex. Is the U.S. under any threat of losing its lead that it has in semiconductors or artificial intelligence? And how does the U.S. maintain that lead over the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, we're under a huge threat because if you look at the infrastructure to make these chips, China already has the manufacturing power to do so, and they already have the infrastructure in place. Today, I live in between Austin and San Antonio, and they're gearing up to manufacture a lot of these chips in the United States, but the infrastructure isn't here. It's mainly done through companies that are either housed in China or Taiwan, such as Foxconn.
Well, all right, Rex, you make a lot of great points. I just wanted to see how you would respond to some of the counter arguments. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me on, Don.
A Kenyan politician came to the United States recently and is speaking about abductions in his country. The former deputy president of Kenya says protesters have been going missing after criticizing the government, including Chinese influence in the African nation. NTD's David Lam has the story.
Rigathi Gachagua, former deputy president of Kenya, has been in the U.S. for over a month meeting with Kenyan people. He hopes for Kenyans to appeal to U.S. senators and representatives to bring attention to human rights violations in his country. Gachagua told NTD that protesters have been abducted after criticizing the Kenyan government.
Mostly the ones who have been targeted are young children between the ages of 14 to 24 who are very active on social media, who have been calling out the government, who have been condemning abductions, who have been condemning theft of public funds, and those young adults are targeted by the state for repression. They are arrested and tortured. Some are killed, some are shot.
The Kenya Human Rights Commission has tried to piece together statistics about children who have died. Gachagua said about 300 have disappeared and over 100 dead. Current President William Ruto pledged in 2024 that abductions will not happen under his watch. But Gachagua claims the recent abductions have occurred since 2024, and the locals used social media to complain about the issues that disturb them in Kenya, including loans taken from communist China. Kenya is 12 trillion in debt in shillings, Kenyan currency, which is equivalent to 92 billion US dollars.
We are concerned as a country about the Chinese invasion to Kenya. It's economic invasion by the Chinese people to Kenya and has literally reduced our business people into beggars. The Chinese people have come and taken over even small businesses.
Gachagua claims that Chinese contractors have started construction businesses and living units in Kenya, but the earnings get sent back to China.
It's just too much pressure. The Chinese are very strong because of the kind of money they bring into the country. They have literally compromised everybody, so nobody wants to listen to what we are saying. So the Kenyan people are, they are in a very difficult situation. Because the government officials are the ones who are doing business with the Chinese.
David Lam, NTD News, California.
China is hitting Canada with steep tariffs of nearly 76% on canola, escalating a trade dispute that's putting Canadian farmers and exporters on edge. The announcement comes earlier today as Canadian farmers face growing uncertainty over access to one of their biggest export markets. China is slapping steep new duties on Canadian canola starting Thursday. The move is effectively shutting the door on one of Canada's largest agricultural exports. Beijing says it's an anti-dumping measure in response to a trade dispute last year when Canada placed tariffs on Chinese EV imports. Canada's trade and agriculture ministers say they're open to talks but want fair market access for Canadian farmers. The Canola Council of Canada says the new rate of about 76% makes selling to China nearly impossible. Canada shipped more than $3.6 billion worth of canola to China last year. Most of the exports were raw seeds, making China by far its largest buyer. This comes as Canada faces trade tensions with both the U.S. and China. Its top canola oil and meal market, Beijing already placed tariffs on Canadian canola oil and meal back in March. At the time, Canada also imposed 25% tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum. The canola industry denied China's allegations of dumping and believes the move is tied to wider trade and political tensions. Meanwhile, Australia, who's the world's second largest canola exporter, sees a chance to regain access to China's market after a years-long freeze. Australia and the island nation of Vanuatu have struck a deal to boost economic and security ties. The $327 million Nakamal agreement will see Australia invest in Vanuatu over the next decade, aiming to benefit both countries. Under the agreement, Australia plans to provide funding to support Vanuatu's large data centers, enhance security, and offer budget assistance. The deal comes as China Vanuatu's top creditor increases its influence in the Pacific. In recent years, China has funded major infrastructure projects in Vanuatu, including a new president's office last year. The agreement will be signed by the prime ministers of both countries in the coming weeks. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. is preparing to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Russia have already designated the organization as a terror group. In July, Senator Ted Cruz introduced legislation to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terror group. The Texas Republican called Hamas a branch of the organization. Cruz also called the Muslim Brotherhood a threat to American national security. A similar bill was introduced in the House last month. Coming up, Nepal is slowly converting to coffee. The traditionally tea-drinking culture sees shifting tastes. Don't go away.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. The highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
A non-political battle is coming to Washington, D.C. at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, to be exact. President Donald Trump is preparing to host an Ultimate Fighting Championship event at the White House next year. UFC Chief Executive Dana White confirmed that during an appearance on CBS Mornings. White also said he spoke about the UFC event with President Trump Monday night, and more talks are scheduled. Traditionally a tea-drinking culture, Nepal is slowly converting to coffee. The price for a cup of joe may be high, but cafes are still becoming popular with office workers and students. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the trend away from tea.
Tea is king in Nepal, but this cafe in Kathmandu is meeting cravings for coffee. Gaga and Pradhan began Himalayan Java in an alley. Now it's grown to a chain with 84 locations across the country.
I think with Java, from the inception, what we've actually done is we try to sell the experience. So we have a really nice, very simple setup, knowledgeable staff, and there's a variety with the coffee.
Pradhan says tea shops are still popular across Nepal, but coffee establishments are providing a different ambiance.
The reason I think the coffee has taken tea businesses, there are a lot of tea shops flourishing throughout the nation, but the kind of setup that they have is still very old-fashioned. They haven't done much with that.
Tea is as much a part of the nation's culture as rice, but now the beverage has a competitor.
I think with investors, even people like us, I think when it comes to coffee, we're more serious, not only with machines, we're very serious with everything that we do, the lighting, the setup, the furnitures, the location. And business is all about location, location, locations.
Coffee is a premium drink in Nepal, costing around $2 here at Himalayan Java. That's enough to buy a meal at a local cafe in Kathmandu, or 5 cups of tea. One coffee enthusiast describes the beverage's cultural impact.
Now, if you go to every corner of any street, the coffee culture is there, where you have nice cafes, which is an expression of art, which is a place where people come, sit, relax, socialize, or work.
So far, international brands like Starbucks aren't in Nepal, but the nation is starting to produce its own Joe. According to Nepal's National Tea and Coffee Development Board, about 400 tons of coffee were produced in fiscal year 2021 through 2022. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A woman from New York is getting married and she wanted to find her own diamond to set in a ring. So, Michelle Fox headed to a place known for its gems, Crater of Diamonds State Park in Murrysboro, Kansas. That's in the southeast portion of the state. She spent 3 weeks searching, and on the last day of her trip, she found a 2.3 carat white diamond. Park officials say Fox was walking along the West Drain area when she noticed something sparkling by her feet. When she picked it up, she realized it was a glittering stone. Fox's discovery was pretty big. It was the 3rd largest diamond found at the park this year. People have found more than 350 diamonds there this year. Lawmakers considering reauthorizing the Defense Production Act, a key tool to counter China's growing threat. We have that and more when we come back.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-522-0122, 800-522-0122.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's enzyme fermented coffee.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers.
Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free adult education centers.